My name is Diane Harmon, and I was 34 years old the night my parents cut me out of my own family with a group text. It landed at 7:42 on a Tuesday, 12 names on the thread, and it said we think it is best you step away for now. My Aunt Pauline answered with a thumbs up. I sat at my kitchen table and read it until the phone screen went dark on its own. Then I typed back 4 words. Understood. I will step away from the family fund too. That night, I closed the account. By 2 in the morning, my phone would not stop buzzing, and by sunrise, there were 89 missed calls waiting for me. My father had left exactly one voicemail. What happened, he said, the bank flagged everything. I answered with a single line. I am honoring your decision. What none of them knew that night was that the fund had been the smallest weight I was carrying. It would take my family a full month to uncover the rest, one piece at a time. I run a small bookkeeping office above a hardware store on Main Street in a town called Millbrook, 2 rooms, one assistant named Priya, and a coffee maker older than she is. Numbers are how I earn my living and honestly how I make sense of people, because a ledger never flatters anyone. It only tells you what actually happened, which is more than most families ever manage to do. I grew up 12 minutes from that office, in a white house with a porch swing my father built the summer I turned 9. My dad, Walter, spent 31 years as a service manager at a car dealership downtown. My mother, Denise, ran the women's group at our church and ran the family's reputation the way a general runs a war, with maps nobody else was allowed to see. My older brother Craig fixes furnaces, married a woman named Renee, has 2 kids, a good heart, and absolutely no head for paperwork. Then there is Aunt Pauline, my mother's younger sister, who has agreed with whoever spoke last since sometime around 1975. From the outside we looked solid: Sunday dinners, matching photos at Easter, a casserole on every grieving porch in the county. I believed in us the way you believe in a bridge you drive across every day. You do not inspect it, you just trust that it holds. 6 years before that group text, a piece of county mail sitting in a junk drawer showed me exactly what my family actually ran on. I had gone looking for batteries and found the bill for everything instead. It was Father's Day, and the dealership had shut its doors that spring, corporate consolidation they called it, which is a long way of saying 31 years fit into one cardboard box. My father was 57, too young for Social Security and too proud to admit either fact out loud. At dinner, he carved the ham like nothing in the world had a blade to it but him. Later, hunting through the kitchen junk drawer for batteries, I found an envelope from the county treasurer, already opened and very red. Delinquent property taxes, just under $5,000, past due. I stood there holding batteries in one hand and my childhood in the other. Through the window, I could see my father in the garage, wiping down a workbench that was already spotless. I walked out with the envelope, and he looked at it the way men look at a diagnosis. The pension buyout came to almost nothing, he said quietly, cents on the dollar. Lawyers took the rest. He was behind on the county, behind on the electric, and a payment behind on a home equity line I never even knew existed. Then he said the sentence that would decide the next 6 years of my life. Your mother cannot know the number. She cannot handle being seen like this. I asked how bad it would get by spring. He just picked the rag back up and wiped the same clean spot, and that silence was the whole answer. We built the arrangement in that garage the way you build most things in a garage, quietly and out of sight of the kitchen. I opened a checking account in my name alone and privately called it the family fund. Every month on the first, $2,400 would move out of it into my parents' account. Time to land before the home equity payment, the electric bill, and the insurance drafts all came due. I paid the property taxes straight to the county myself, twice a year, so no red envelope would ever sit in that drawer again. My father had one condition, and he said it with his hand flat on the workbench like he was swearing an oath. Your mother can never know the amount, and nobody else can know it all. I was 28. I said yes before he even finished the sentence. Here is the part that still amazes me as someone who works with numbers for a living. The cover story was not mine, and it was not my father's either. It was my mother's. Within a month, Denise had announced a family fund to the whole clan, a cheerful little kitty for emergencies and holidays. Everybody chip in what they can. Aunt Pauline dropped in $25 at Christmas and felt wonderful about it. Craig threw in $50 when his tax refund came through. And whenever anyone in town wondered how Walter and Denise were managing since the dealership closed, my mother would smile and say Walter's retirement is doing just fine. She never once asked me a single question about the real account. Not one. Over 6 years, the woman contributed casseroles and a slogan, and somehow she became the manager of the entire story. I worked it out far too late. The person who contributes the least is sometimes the one who gets to decide what the money means. 72 first of the month, that is what 6 years comes to if you happen to be the kind of person who counts, and I am. $2,400 every single month. Quiet as a heartbeat. When their furnace died, I covered it in full, $6,000 and change, installed by my brother's company at cost on a warranty. Craig never looked at twice. When the roof started letting rain into the attic, I paid half, and my father told everyone he had been saving for it. The fund refilled my mother's arthritis prescriptions. It kept the truck insured. It even floated Craig's tool loan the winter his van broke down, though he thanked Mom and Dad for that one, and they let him believe it. Meanwhile, I drove a 12-year-old sedan and kept renting the small apartment above my office, telling myself a house could wait 1 more year, then 1 more after that. I want to be clear because it matters later. I was not naive about it. In year 2, I sat my father down and pushed to bring the arrangement into the open, tell Craig, split the load, make it a real family plan. He would not move. My mother had raised him on a vow tied to some old shame I only half understood. Something about charity and being seen as poor. He told me flatly, if you make this public, I will go to a bank instead and embarrass your mother. I had seen the kind of lenders circling him already, smiling, charging rates that would eat a man alive. So I chose the smaller price and kept writing the quiet checks. It held that way for 6 years, my invisible arithmetic sitting under everybody's feet. Then my brother decided to expand. It was Father's Day again, burgers in the backyard, my dad at the grill in an apron we had given him a decade earlier, my mother orbiting the picnic table with a pitcher of lemonade and her usual stage direction. Craig stood up somewhere between the potato salad and the cake and announced he was opening a second shop across town. Renee squeezed his arm. The kids cheered because he did, and then my mother, glowing like a woman unveiling a prize, said your father and I are lending him $25,000 to get it started, from savings. From savings. I sat very still with a paper plate balanced on my knee because I knew to the dollar what my parents actually had in savings, and it was nothing because I was their savings. That $25,000 did not exist yet. It existed in the future, in 72 more firsts of the month that had not happened, in my old sedan staying alive another 5 years, in the house I would keep not buying. Nobody had asked me. They had promised my money to my brother in front of the entire family as though it were their own. I waited until the cake was cut. Then I said, as evenly as I could manage, can we talk about the loan before anything is promised, just the 4 of us, before it is set? That was all I said. You would have thought I had flipped the picnic table over. Renee studied her fork. Craig's ears went red. My mother's smile never moved while everything behind it did, like a house where only the porch light is still burning. Not at the table, Diane, she said, sweet as the lemonade. This is a celebration. My father looked at the grill. The grill had nothing to add. 9 days of silence began that night, though I did not know the count yet. The family group thread went quiet the way a pond freezes over from the edges in. Renee still sent a photo of the kids at the pool. Nobody replied under mine. On Wednesday, Craig texted me directly, no greeting at all. Why do you always have to run the numbers on people? I stared at that message a long time. Running the numbers was the one thing I had ever truly done for this family, and somehow it had become my crime. I did not apologize because I had not done anything that needed one, and I had learned the hard way that apologizing for the truth only teaches people that the truth is negotiable. Instead, I did what I do. I built a plan, 2 pages, plain language, no blame, where things stood, what was sustainable, what was not, and 3 ways forward we could choose together like adults. I planned to ask my parents for an hour some Sunday, and finally dragged the whole quiet arrangement into the light where it could breathe. I never got the chance to schedule it. What I got instead was Aunt Pauline's voice in the background of my mother's kitchen every evening that week, 2 sisters and a speakerphone deciding what I was on the 9th day, a Tuesday. I closed the office at 6, made dinner for 1, and was rinsing a pan when the phone lit up on the counter. 7:42 in the evening. The family thread. My mother's phrasing, my father's silence, and every relative I had reading along. We have been talking as a family, and we think it is best you step away for now. We love you, but there has been a lot of tension since Father's Day, and everyone needs space to heal. We hope you will respect that. It was sent from my father's phone, but written in my mother's voice. I would know that syrup anywhere. 12 people on that thread, my parents, Craig and Renee, Aunt Pauline and Uncle Ray, 2 cousins, their spouses, my late grandmother's old landline that nobody had ever removed, and me. Stepped away from my own family on the very same thread we used for birthday cakes and snow day warnings. I watched the message sit there. Then Aunt Pauline reacted with a thumbs up, and I heard myself laugh. One short sound. Alone in my kitchen. A thumbs up. That woman had known me since the hospital nursery. I put the phone down, washed the pan, dried my hands, and picked it back up. My reply took me 1 draft. Understood. I will respect that. And step away from the family fun too. No period of negotiation. No paragraph of hurt. If the family had voted me out, the family could not keep the part of me that paid its bills. That arithmetic has to run in both directions, or it was never a family fund at all. It was 11 o'clock when I opened my laptop. The next transfer was scheduled to run at midnight, $2,400, the 73rd first of the month. I canceled it. I canceled the electronic check for the coming tax installment. I canceled the small auto-pay feeding my mother's pharmacy card. Each click felt like a year of my life leaving my hands, and the strangest part was how calm those hands actually were. Then I turned off the ringer and went to bed. At 2:14 in the morning, every machine my family never knew existed tried to speak at once. Banks run their overnight batches in the small hours, payments post, transfers land, machines talk to other machines while the whole town sleeps, and that night the machines had bad news for each other. My transfer never arrived, so my parents' account sat nearly empty when the drafts came calling. The home equity payment reached in and found nothing. The electric bill bounced behind it. The insurance draft bounced behind that. Every single failure fired off a text alert straight to my father's phone because years earlier I had been the one who set up those alerts, being the kind of daughter who thinks of things. Insufficient funds. Payment could not be processed. Action required. At 2:15, my own phone started buzzing on the dresser, and I know the exact minute because I looked, one eye open, screen glare.
Dad.
I declined it. It buzzed again before the screen finished going dark, and I lay there listening to it rattle against the wood. I want to be honest about what I felt, and it was not triumph. It was the feeling you get when you finally set down something heavy and your arms float up on their own, light and a little sick, like your body no longer recognizes its own weight. I turned the phone face down. The buzzing kept time all night, patient as rain on a roof. By morning it had a number, 89 missed calls by sunrise, most from my father, many from my mother, several from Craig, and a handful from Aunt Pauline. Thumbs up Pauline calling me at 4 in the morning as if we were close. There were texts too, a column of panic in all capital letters, but only one voicemail, my father's voice, and I had never heard it sound like that, not even the day the dealership closed. Diane, call me back. What happened? The bank flagged everything, the house payment, the lights, all of it. There are alerts all over my phone. Your mother's. Just call, please. I sat on the edge of my bed in the gray morning light and played it 3 times, not to enjoy it, but to make sure of something, and I was right. In 90 seconds of terror, the question had been what happened, not what did we do. The bank had flagged everything, like weather, like an act of God, like the money that had appeared under them every month for 6 years was a natural feature of the earth that had simply, inexplicably, stopped. My thumb hovered over the screen. There was a version of me, the version they were all counting on, who would have fixed it by breakfast and apologized for the inconvenience. I typed one line instead. I am honoring your decision. Then I put the phone on silent, showered, and opened my office at 8 sharp, because women like me always open at 8 sharp. Priya took one look at my face and made the coffee strong. The knock on my door came the very next morning, and of course it was not my mother. It was my father, standing at the street entrance of my building at 7:40 in the morning with his cap in both hands, working the brim like a rosary, 63 years old, pressed shirt, freshly shaved, a man dressing up to go ask his daughter something he would rather die than say. Your mother does not know I am here, he said, which in our family is practically a love language. I made him coffee upstairs at my little kitchen table, and he looked around the apartment like he was seeing it for the first time, the second-hand couch, the folding bookshelf, the window unit humming in the corner. The daughter with nearly $200,000 gone out the door was living like a graduate student, and I watched some kind of arithmetic happen behind his eyes that had never happened there before. He could not quite bring himself to ask. He got as far as we, twice, and the word payment once, and each time the sentence died of shame on the table between us. So I helped him because 34 years of loving somebody does not shut off in one night, and said, I know exactly what is due. Dad, I am not doing this to watch you drown. I slid a single sheet of paper across the table. Every bill that used to ride on my back, each with its amount and its date printed plainly, not a ledger, a handoff.
These are yours now, I said.
You have more time than the alerts make it feel like. Late is survivable. Pretending is what is expensive. He read it top to bottom twice, folded it into quarters, and tucked it into his shirt pocket behind his pen, exactly where he had kept everything important for decades. At the door he stopped, back still turned to me. She told everyone you had some kind of episode, he said, and then he went down the stairs. I found out later where my mother had gone instead of calling me. She had gone to church. That same week the pharmacy called my office, because that is how these things reach you in a small town. Not with a summons, just the girl at the drive-through window. Apologetic. My mother's arthritis refill had been declined. The card on file was not working, and Denise had stood at the counter insisting there must be some mistake until the line behind her grew opinions of its own. My mother's hands ached badly in the heat. I know because I had watched her struggle with a childproof cap slower every year, and I had quietly paid for those pills for 6 years, folded inside the same auto-pay as everything else. I want to be exact here because it matters to me that you understand what I was doing and what I was not. The fund stayed closed. But I drove over on my lunch break, paid for that one refill at the counter in person, and set the pharmacy account so that single prescription would bill straight to me from then on. No card of hers involved, no fund resurrected. My assistant asked why I would pay for anything after what they did, and I gave her the only answer I had. The fund was a lie I am done telling. Her joints are not a lesson. Boundaries, it turns out, need a steady hand, and mine were only 3 days old and wobbly, but that line felt straight, so I drew it. Driving home that evening, I passed the church and noticed the parking lot was full, and I remember thinking some committee Must be meeting. Some committee was. By Sunday, I had become a prayer request, not by name from the pulpit. My mother is an artist, not a vandal. It moved through the women's phone tree in tones of loving concern instead. Diane is going through something. She has cut the whole family off. Pray for Denise. She's holding up so well. And just like that, the sympathies started flowing in the correct direction toward my mother, carried in on casseroles. Neighbors brought supper to my parents' house. Someone's husband offered to fix my father's gutters, since apparently the poor man's ungrateful daughter had abandoned them in their golden years. Aunt Pauline left me a voicemail that belongs in a museum of voicemails. 2 full minutes of scripture-adjacent disappointment, ending with, "I just never thought you would let money change you, sweetheart." Let money change me. I sat in my car and laughed until it stopped being laughter. 2 cousins quietly unfollowed me online. The family thread stayed silent. I was still on it technically, the way a name stays on a mailbox after the person has moved out. I did nothing, and I want that on the record. No counterstory, no corrective texts, no receipts posted anywhere. Partly it was strategy, because you cannot out-narrate a woman who has run the story of a town for 40 years on her home field, but mostly it was older and simpler than strategy. Even exiled, I was still keeping their secret, still holding the roof up with my mouth shut. Monday at 5, Craig's truck pulled up outside my office, and he did not come upstairs happy. He filled my doorway the way he had since high school, arms crossed, jaw set first. "Mom says you froze the family's money," he said, "the fund, everybody's fund, because your feelings got hurt at the cookout." I let that sit a second. "Everybody's fund," I repeated. "One question, Craig, and then I will answer anything you want. In 6 years, how much have you actually put into it?" His mouth opened on a number he did not have. I watched him hunt for it, the holiday 50, maybe the year of his tax refund, watched him do more math in 10 seconds than he had done in 6 years, and watched the answer come back small and cold. "That is not the point," he said, quieter now, because he builds things for a living and he could hear a beam creaking somewhere in the story he had been handed. "It is exactly the point," I said. "I did not freeze everybody's money. I stopped giving mine. Those are 2 very different sentences." He stood there working it over, and then my brother said something that told me the ground under our childhood home had never been as solid as either of us had pretended. "Dad has been weird about cash since the dealership closed," he said. "Wouldn't let me quote him for a new furnace 2 years back. Then suddenly the warranty covered it."
He looked at me.
I looked back at him. "Warranties do not cover acts of a daughter." "Craig," I said gently, "go ask your parents. Not me. It was never mine to tell, and it still is not." He left without slamming the door, which for Craig is a white flag. That Sunday I drove past the old house at 10:30, when I knew the pews would be holding my parents. I had not planned a speech, because there was nobody there to hear one. On my keyring, between my office key and my car key, hung the brass one, the key to my parents' house, cut for me at 16, carried through every apartment and every purse for 18 years. If I was stepping away, then the door I could always walk through was not mine anymore, and I was not going to hold a lie in metal. I sealed it in a plain envelope, no note, and taped it inside the storm door where the screen would keep the weather off it. Then I stood on that porch a minute in the quiet. The grass was 2 weeks overgrown. My father mowed on Saturdays, always, and had not. The porch swing chains had rust blooming through them. And the truck was gone, not parked at church, gone. My father's truck that he had babied for 20 years was missing from the driveway and the garage, and the oil stain on the concrete was already fading the way it does when nothing new drips onto it. Through the kitchen window, I could see the wall calendar by the phone, the one my mother had kept since before cell phones existed, and what I saw there followed me home and has never really left me. Every first of the month, all of them, circled in red pen, in her handwriting. My mother, who had never asked a single question about the fund, who managed the story and touched none of the math, had been circling the day my money landed for 6 straight years, the way you circle a birthday. She knew the rhythm of me by heart. She had just never once said my name over it. The first day of the next month fell on a Saturday, and this time no phones rang about it. It was the first quiet first of the month in 6 years, and I woke at 6 anyway, made coffee, and sat at the table with my phone dark in front of me like a switched-off appliance, feeling for a chore that was not there anymore. My hands genuinely did not know what to do on a first of the month, so I drove, no plan, windows down, out past the edge of town. On a quiet residential street, I slowed for a small brick house with a deep front porch and a for sale sign leaning slightly, as if it were tired of asking. I sat parked across from that house for half an hour. 34 years old, and I could afford it, had been able to afford it for years. That was the joke. The down payment had simply gone out $2,400 at a time, buying a story I was not even a character in. And sitting there, I finally asked myself the question I had been outrunning since the garage 6 years earlier. Who was I if nobody needed me? Because I knew exactly how to be the responsible one, the quiet fix, the ground everyone stood on, but I had no idea how to simply be somebody's daughter, or somebody's neighbor, or a woman on a porch with her own name on the deed. That question frightened me more than 89 missed calls ever had. I drove home without writing down the realtor's number. Baby steps. That evening Aunt Pauline called, and I almost let it ring through to voicemail, but something about the hour felt polite, so I answered. Her voice was different, smaller. Diane, she said, what exactly was the family fund? Here is how the truth started leaking, and I promise I did not spring the leak myself. With my parents visibly struggling, the overgrown grass, the neglected gutters, the church phone tree working overtime, one of my cousins had floated the obvious idea, why not help Walter and Denise out of the family fund, the kitty we all supposedly owned together? So Aunt Pauline, who was listed on that cheerful little cover account my mother had opened for appearances, went to the bank branch and asked for a balance and a history. 6 years of the whole extended family's generosity, minus my transfers, which had never touched it, came to a little over $1,000, birthday 20s, holiday 50s, one ambitious 100 from Uncle Ray that he had mentioned at least once a year since. Pauline stood in that lobby staring at the number the entire family believed was their safety net, and the number stared back and neither of them blinked. But then, what has been paying for everything? She started to ask me on the phone, and stopped because 60 years in this family had taught her exactly what fills a gap that size and says absolutely nothing about it. Me. The thumbs up she had tapped so breezily was sitting heavy in her lap now. To her credit, and I am stingy with credit where Pauline is concerned, she said sorry like she meant it. But my mother was already ahead of us both, because that same week the story changed again. This second version reached me through Renee, who had heard it at a church picnic and called me, bewildered. My mother was now explaining that I had been controlling my parents' accounts for years, poor Walter barely allowed to buy his own coffee, and that the family had finally, bravely, asked me to step back for everyone's good. My exile had been rewritten as an intervention, and that version was now headed straight for my clients. Understand what I do for a living. I hold the books for 24 small businesses in a town where reputation is the only currency that never inflates. A bookkeeper who supposedly controls her own parents' money is not a bookkeeper for very long. It took 11 days. Mr. Delgado, who owns the tire shop and has been my client since I opened my doors, came in not quite meeting my eyes and asked for his files back. No offense, Diane, he said, it is just, there is talk and my wife is in the Bible study. I had his records boxed, indexed, and transferred to a new accountant within 24 hours, with a checklist so clean it was almost rude, because the best answer to just talk is work nobody can talk about. I stood a second at the storm door before knocking, the same door where I had taped the envelope with a key, the tape mark still faintly visible, a little ghost rectangle in the corner of the glass. Whoever I had been the last time I touched that door, I was not her anymore. My father saw me first and half stood, old manners fighting new shame. My mother did not turn from the counter. "Come in, Diane," she said to the window. "Say what you came to say." The percolator spat again. Pauline pulled out the empty chair for me, helpful as ever, and I looked at it, center of the room, facing the jury, built for a penitent. "Thanks, Pauline," I said. "I will stand." I did not open with an apology. "I did not bring paper," I said. "You do not forget numbers you have lived." And then, in the same voice I used to walk a client through a hard year, I said the 6 years out loud. The year of the dealership closing, the red envelope in the junk drawer, nearly $5,000 past due on that house, the pension buyout worth cents on the dollar, the checking account I opened that same summer, $2,400, leaving it on the first of every month for 72 months, time to land under the home equity payment, the electric, and the insurance before any of them hit ground. The furnace, $6,000, Craig, that was never covered by warranty. Half the roof, several thousand more. My mother's prescriptions on autopay, always full. All of it totaling a little over $180,000, and I said that number slowly, not for drama, but because a number that size deserves the same respect as a name. Nobody moved. Renee had both hands over her mouth. Pauline sat down, without checking for the chair. Then I turned to my father, because this part was the whole reason I had come, and said the sentence I had been drafting for 6 years. "Dad did not fail anybody," I said. "The dealership closing was arithmetic, not sin, and it was never a secret worth what it has cost to keep." My father's shoulders came down an inch, like a man setting down a box. Craig stared at nothing, lips moving, finding the $25,000 somewhere in the ruins, and understanding whose it would have actually been. In the silence, my mother finally turned from the counter, dish towel still perfectly folded over her wrist, and smiled at the room the way she smiles at a stain. "Are you finished?" she said, "because I would like to say something about your sister's condition. You have all seen it," she went on, calm as a hymn, right over me. "She isolates herself above that little office. She controlled your father's accounts for years. Poor Walter could not buy a coffee without her, and when we finally, lovingly asked her to step back, look what she has done to us in 6 weeks. This is what money does to a person who—" "Stop, Denise." My father's voice was not loud. In 63 years, I do not think it has ever once been loud, which is exactly why the whole kitchen turned as if the refrigerator itself had spoken. He was standing now, his hand flat on the table in that same spot he had sworn on 6 years earlier in the garage. "Every word she said is true," he said. "Every number, every date. It was my doing to hide it, and it was wrong, and I am done." One sentence of confirmation, that was all he offered, and all that was needed. I want to be exact. He was not rescuing me. The truth was already standing in that room. He was simply refusing to sit down next to the lie again. And my mother, my composed, him-voiced mother, who had run 4 decades on the fuel of always being fine, came apart at a seam nobody knew she had. I will not be a charity case in my own church twice. It tore out of her. Do you know what they do to families like that? They pray for you out loud with your name. Her hands were shaking on the folded towel. I wore a coat with another girl's name in the collar for 2 winters, and everyone smiled at me, and I would rather be dead than be that again. Do you hear me? I would rather. She caught herself, one ragged breath in a kitchen gone so quiet the wall clock sounded like a hammer. Every face at that table had just glimpsed the 13-year-old girl underneath her, and every face turned to me. I could have finished her right there. The room was mine. 34 years of swallowed words lined up behind my teeth with their engines running. That is the moment revenge stories are supposed to live for. Standing in it, I found I did not want it. Winning against my mother would only have been another way of staying trapped inside her game. I took the single sheet of paper from my blazer pocket, not evidence, an offer, and laid it flat on the table beside the untouched cake. "Here is what I can do," I said, "and the terms it comes with. I will pay the county and the bank tomorrow morning, and zero out what is overdue, about $3,700 altogether. After that, $1,200 a month for 18 months, not a bottomless obligation, a number with an end date written down, and it goes on the refrigerator where every person in this room can read it." Craig contributes what Craig can. Pauline drives Mom to appointments and picks up prescriptions. In exchange, two things: Mom and Dad sit down with the housing counselor, one meeting, and in the spring this house goes on the market because it is a bill with memories and it is eating you both alive. I looked at my mother and made it as gentle as an ultimatum can be spoken. Everything in daylight, Mom, or nothing at all. Those are the only terms I have left. She stared at me across her own kitchen. 6 years ago, I made a decision in the dark. I told her, tonight I am honoring my own. I was under this family for 6 years. I would like to be in it instead. For a long moment, I genuinely did not know which way the coin would land. Then my mother set the dish towel down on the counter, squared it edge to edge the way she has done her whole life, and walked out of her own kitchen, through her own storm door, into the backyard. The screen door clapped shut behind her. Nobody breathed. My father reached into his shirt pocket, behind the folded list I had given him weeks earlier, and took out his pen. He did not sign right away. He read it aloud first, every line, the overdue figure, the monthly amount, the end date, the meeting, the spring, making himself say it, making everyone hear it. It was the bravest bookkeeping I have ever witnessed. Then he signed and slid the sheet to Craig, who wrote in an amount in the margin, initialed it, and said, "Forget the 25, in the voice of a man finally paying off a stranger's debt out of plain decency. Pauline signed up for Tuesdays and the pharmacy and cried onto the untouched cake. "This is what is best," my father said, tapping the page once, the kind you can actually say out loud. Through the window over the sink, I could see my mother in the backyard, still in her Sunday dress, deadheading the roses with her bare fingers, her back perfectly straight toward the house. I went out. The evening light was going gold at the edges, and the screen door announced me, and she did not turn around. "You have made me small," she said to the roses, loud enough for everyone inside to hear. "No, Mom," I said, "the lie was small. You had just been carrying it a lot longer than I carried the money. I only had 6 years. You have had it since you were 13. Her shears went still on a stem, but she did not turn. You do not undo a woman like Denise in a backyard, but after a while, in a voice I had never heard her use before, flat and bare, like a person setting down a purse at the end of a very long day, my mother asked the only question she had left. "What happens on the 1st of the month now?" she said. "Breakfast," I told her, "if you want it." The roses moved a little in the breeze. "Your father likes the diner on Route 9, she said to the garden. From my mother, that was not surrender, but it was an address. The house sold the following spring to a young family with a swing set already loaded in a rented trailer before the ink was even dry. What was left after every debt was cleared gave my parents enough for a small 2-bedroom patio home a few blocks from their church, where the yard is the size of a dining table, and my father has already declared war on its one hedge. My mother told a congregation they had downsized to simplify, and the whole congregation nodded along, and if you think a town cannot tell the difference between a lie and the truth wearing new clothes, you have never lived in one. The sheet of terms is taped to the new refrigerator for signatures now, since Pauline added her own column. Everything sits in daylight, where a lie would have nowhere left to hide. By month 9, there was a first of the month where my father covered his own gap entirely, and my contribution dropped from $1,200 to $900, and he circled that one on the calendar himself, in black pen this time, not red. Every first Saturday of the month we have breakfast at the diner on Route 9, and my father pays for the coffee with cash he counts out of a worn envelope, and I let him, because letting him is the entire point. My mother came along for the first time that June, sat on the edge of the booth like it was my old couch, ordered tea, corrected nobody's posture, and when the waitress called her Han, something in her face almost allowed it. We do not talk about that kitchen meeting, and we likely never will. Some accounts stay open. But that spring I bought the little brick house I had parked in front of for half an hour, my own name on the deed, at 35. And when my father came to see it, He handed me a newly cut key to the patio home, still bright from the machine. Nobody had asked him to. It lives in my kitchen drawer now, and this time it is not a duty. It is an invitation, and I know the difference now because for 6 years I paid dearly not to. As for the family fund, the real one and the story both, it is closed for good. What my family found, one piece at a time, was everything else I had been carrying, and everything else I found inside myself once I finally set it down. On the first of the month now, my phone does not ring. Most mornings I drink my coffee on my own porch and let the quiet balance itself, which, if you keep books long enough, you learn is the rarest entry of all. If a family only stands when you are the one standing under it, that was never a home, it was only ever a weight. Real family is the thing you get to stand inside of on your very worst day, with both hands free. That is my story, one group message, one thumbs up, 89 missed calls, and a key I finally gave back, so a better one could find me.